The man you called an upgrade works for me." The words had not been spoken yet, but somehow they already hung in the air, invisible, waiting for the perfect moment to shatter every illusion inside the cathedral. Ryan Whitmore stood at the front beneath towering white roses, adjusting the cuff of his tailored Italian suit, while photographers captured every polished smile. Crystal chandeliers spilled warm light across polished marble floors, and the city's wealthiest families filled every row, whispering about the power couple whose marriage was expected to dominate magazine covers by the end of the week. Emily Carter smiled proudly beside Ryan, convinced she had finally escaped the ordinary life she once feared. 6 months earlier, she had walked away from a quiet marriage without looking back. She had told her husband, Marcus Ellington, that love wasn't enough. She wanted security, influence, luxury, and a future worthy of the woman she believed she had become. Ryan, she insisted, was everything Marcus could never be. Handsome, powerful, ambitious, successful. Most of all, she had called him an upgrade. Marcus had simply looked at her across the dining room table of their modest apartment, where the paint near the kitchen window had begun to fade from years of afternoon sunlight. He hadn't argued. He hadn't begged. He hadn't reminded her of the nights they had built dreams together while sharing takeout from the neighborhood diner. He simply removed his wedding band, placed it gently on the wooden table, and asked for one thing in return. "May I keep the old photo from our first apartment?" Emily had laughed softly, almost feeling sorry for him. "Take whatever memories you want," she had replied. "I'm taking my future." She walked away carrying expensive luggage Ryan had already sent to her before the divorce papers were finalized. Marcus watched the elevator doors close without chasing after her. His face remained calm, but his eyes lingered on the empty hallway for several quiet seconds before he turned off the lights and locked the apartment for the final time. From that day forward, Emily never once wondered where Marcus went. She assumed he had rented another small apartment somewhere across town, found another ordinary office job, and continued living the simple life she believed he deserved. She never questioned why he had never argued about money during the divorce. She never questioned why he willingly signed every document without asking for a single dollar. She never questioned why the attorneys representing him wore expressions of absolute confidence despite saying almost nothing during every meeting. Meanwhile, Ryan loved attention. Luxury SUVs lined his driveway. Every dinner became a networking event. Every vacation became another opportunity to post carefully staged photographs beside private jets, oceanfront resorts, and championship golf courses. Emily admired how effortlessly Ryan commanded every room they entered. He introduced her to investors, politicians, celebrity athletes, and executives whose names regularly appeared on national business channels. Every compliment fed her belief that she had made the smartest decision of her life. Friends congratulated her for choosing success over sentiment. Some even joked that she had escaped just in time before spending decades married to a man who lacked ambition. Emily laughed along with them. She convinced herself she had never truly known Marcus at all. But there was one strange detail she could never explain. Occasionally, whenever Ryan negotiated major business deals, certain executives would quietly postpone meetings after receiving unexpected phone calls. Ryan always brushed it aside, saying powerful people change schedules all the time. Still, each delay seemed to revolve around one mysterious individual no one ever criticized openly. They simply referred to him with respectful silence. "We'll proceed once Mr. Ellington approves it," someone would occasionally whisper before changing the subject. Emily never paid attention to the name. Ellington was common enough. Surely it couldn't have anything to do with Marcus. After all, the man she had left behind drove an aging pickup truck, wore inexpensive watches, mowed his own lawn every Saturday morning, and preferred neighborhood barbecue restaurants over five-star steakhouses. In her mind, those two worlds could never possibly belong to the same man. Standing beneath the cathedral lights now, Emily adjusted the diamond bracelet Ryan had given her only 3 days earlier. She smiled as the music began to swell, believing every difficult decision had led her to this perfect moment. Then Ryan's phone vibrated inside his jacket. He glanced at the screen, expecting another congratulatory message. Instead, every trace of confidence slowly disappeared from his face. Ryan stared at the glowing screen for several long seconds, and the color slowly drained from his face. Emily leaned closer, expecting another delayed flight or a nervous executive asking for reassurance before the ceremony. Instead, Ryan quietly stepped away from the altar, lowering his voice as he answered the call. "Yes, this is Ryan Whitmore." A brief silence followed. Then his posture stiffened. "No, there must be some mistake." Several guests exchanged curious glances. The string quartet continued playing, but the elegant melody suddenly felt distant beneath the growing tension spreading through the cathedral. Ryan swallowed hard. "He is here." Another pause. "You should have informed me before today." His hand trembled almost imperceptibly before the call ended. Emily reached him with a reassuring smile. "What happened?" Ryan forced a laugh that sounded thinner than usual. "Nothing serious. Just an unexpected visitor." Before Emily could ask another question, the massive oak doors at the back of the cathedral slowly opened. Morning sunlight poured across the marble floor, stretching long golden beams between the rows of polished pews. Every conversation faded into silence as several men and women entered wearing tailored business attire instead of wedding clothes. They were familiar faces from financial magazines, national television interviews, and Fortune 500 boardrooms. Billionaire investors, bank presidents, technology founders, a retired governor. One by one, they walked inside with calm expressions, not searching for the bride or groom, but quietly taking their places near the entrance as though waiting for someone far more important than anyone already present. Emily frowned. Ryan had promised these people would attend, but they had all declined weeks earlier because of scheduling conflicts. Why were they arriving together now? An elderly gentleman with silver hair checked his watch before speaking softly to another executive. "Has Mr. Ellington arrived?" The younger man shook his head respectfully. "His vehicle entered the property less than 2 minutes ago." Emily barely noticed the conversation. Her attention remained fixed on Ryan, whose confident smile had completely disappeared. She reached for his hand. It felt cold. "Ryan," she whispered, "who is Mr. Ellington?" Ryan hesitated for the first time since she had ever known him. Normally, he had an answer for everything. Every negotiation, every business rumor, every difficult conversation. But now he simply stared toward the cathedral doors without speaking. Emily searched her memory. The name sounded strangely familiar. She had heard it before. Not once. Several times. Investors mentioned it. Attorneys mentioned it. Even reporters occasionally referred to an unnamed businessman whose approval could determine the future of billion-dollar projects across the state. Yet nobody ever photographed him. Nobody discussed him openly. It was almost as if his influence was accepted without needing explanation. The realization unsettled her, but she quickly dismissed it. Powerful men often enjoyed privacy. That had nothing to do with today. She adjusted the veil resting across her shoulders and reminded herself this was still her wedding day. Outside, luxury sedans continued arriving one after another, each carrying executives who quietly joined the growing crowd inside, without speaking above a whisper. The atmosphere no longer felt like a celebration. It felt like the opening minutes of an important board meeting where every person understood the stakes except the bride. Ryan suddenly loosened his tie and took a slow breath. "Emily," he said carefully, "if someone walks in during the next few minutes, let me do the talking." She looked at him in confusion. "Who are you expecting?" Before he could answer, a black sedan rolled to a smooth stop beneath the cathedral entrance. There was nothing flashy about the vehicle. No custom paint. No security convoy. No flashing cameras. Just a simple luxury sedan that looked almost ordinary among the expensive sports cars parked outside. The driver stepped out first and quietly opened the rear passenger door. Every executive near the entrance immediately straightened their posture. Then, without a single announcement, a familiar pair of polished brown shoes touched the stone steps. The polished brown shoes moved steadily across the cathedral floor, their quiet footsteps echoing through a room that had suddenly forgotten how to breathe. Marcus Ellington walked forward with the same calm expression Emily remembered from countless ordinary mornings, the same measured pace he used when carrying groceries into their old apartment or watering the flowers on their tiny front porch every Sunday. Nothing about him appeared different. His navy suit was elegant but understated. His watch was still the simple silver one she had once teased him for refusing to replace. Even his warm smile remained unchanged. Yet everything around him had transformed. The first executive stepped forward and extended both hands. Good morning, Mr. Ellington. It is an honor to see you again. Then another approached. Thank you for making time for us today, sir. Another nodded respectfully. The board has been waiting for your final decision. Within seconds, nearly every influential guest near the entrance formed a quiet line to greet Marcus. Nobody rushed him. Nobody interrupted. Each person waited patiently for a handshake, as though his attention alone carried extraordinary value. Emily stared in complete disbelief. Her eyes moved from Marcus to Ryan and back again, searching for an explanation that refused to appear. Ryan lowered his head slightly as Marcus finally reached him. Good morning, Ryan, Marcus said with genuine politeness. I hope I am not arriving at an inconvenient moment. Ryan attempted a smile that disappeared almost instantly. No, sir. We were actually expecting you. Emily looked sharply toward Ryan. Sir? She had never once heard Ryan address another businessman with that level of respect. Marcus offered a courteous nod before turning toward Emily. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than every conversation they had ever shared. Emily searched his face for anger, disappointment, even satisfaction, but found none of it. His expression was peaceful, almost compassionate, as though he had accepted the past long before this day arrived. Hello, Emily, Marcus said softly. You look beautiful today. The simple kindness in his voice unsettled her more than any accusation ever could. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Questions flooded her mind all at once. Why were these people treating him like the most important man in the room? Why had Ryan become so nervous? Why did every executive seem to be waiting for Marcus instead of celebrating the wedding? Before she could gather herself, the chairman of one of the largest investment banks in the state stepped beside Marcus carrying a leather portfolio. Mr. Ellington, the acquisition documents are ready whenever you wish to review them. The board unanimously approved every recommendation exactly as you requested. Several guests exchanged confused whispers. Acquisition documents? Today? At a wedding? Marcus accepted the portfolio without opening it. Thank you, Charles. Business can wait another few minutes. Today belongs to the bride and groom. His calm response earned quiet smiles from everyone around him. Emily noticed something she had never seen before. These powerful men and women were not simply respecting Marcus because of his wealth. They genuinely admired him. Their expressions reflected trust rather than obligation. Ryan swallowed hard before speaking again. Sir, there is one matter I hoped we could discuss privately before the board meeting tomorrow morning. Marcus nodded politely. Of course. We will have plenty of time after today's events. Tomorrow morning. Emily repeated those words silently. Ryan had told her tomorrow's meeting would secure the largest deal of his career, one that would place his company among the most influential firms in the region. Suddenly, a terrifying possibility entered her mind. She looked toward the leather portfolio in Marcus's hand, then toward Ryan's anxious face. For the first time since the ceremony began, she wondered whether the future Ryan had promised her had ever truly belonged to him at all. Emily could no longer hear the music. The elegant melody faded beneath the sound of her own heartbeat as questions crashed against everything she believed she knew about the man standing only a few feet away. Marcus had always arrived home before sunset. He fixed leaking faucets himself. He drove an aging pickup truck with more than 200,000 miles on the odometer. He clipped grocery coupons and insisted that wasting food was disrespectful. None of those memories matched the quiet authority filling the cathedral now. A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. Mr. Ellington, the international delegation has landed safely. They will meet you after tomorrow's board session. Marcus smiled politely. Please make sure they have everything they need. No one should be left waiting because of me. The assistant nodded immediately before stepping away. Emily stared at Ryan. What is happening? She whispered. Ryan looked as though every carefully constructed plan inside his mind was collapsing one piece at a time. Marcus controls Ellington Capital, he answered quietly, barely able to meet her eyes. Every major investor in this room answers to that company. Emily frowned. Ellington Capital? The name struck her like a distant memory finally coming into focus. She had seen it on financial news broadcasts. She had heard Ryan mention it during late-night business calls. Every ambitious executive dreamed of earning its backing. Every acquisition required its approval. She slowly turned toward Marcus again. You are telling me. Ryan closed his eyes for a brief moment. He founded it. Emily felt the air leave her lungs. That is impossible. Ryan gave a hollow laugh, filled with disbelief. I used to think the same thing until I met him 2 years ago. Across the room, another executive approached Marcus carrying a tablet. Sir, the quarterly reports exceeded expectations again. The Education Foundation approved another 200 scholarships this morning. Marcus nodded. Good. Make sure every recipient receives the news before the weekend. Those students have waited long enough. Yes, sir. Emily listened in stunned silence. Scholarships, foundations, investments. None of this sounded like the life of a man obsessed with showing off wealth. In fact, Marcus seemed almost uncomfortable being the center of attention. He accepted every greeting with quiet humility before redirecting the conversation towards someone else's accomplishments. The same kindness she had once mistaken for a lack of ambition suddenly appeared very different. She remembered evenings when he stayed late answering phone calls from people she assumed were coworkers. He always stepped onto the apartment balcony before speaking. When she asked why, he simply smiled and said, "Some conversations deserve privacy." She remembered weekends when he disappeared for several hours claiming he was volunteering. She had rolled her eyes, telling friends that Marcus cared more about strangers than success. Now every forgotten detail returned with painful clarity. Marcus had never been avoiding success. He had simply never needed to advertise it. Ryan suddenly received another message. His expression tightened even further as he read it. The board meeting has been moved forward, he muttered. They want to finalize everything immediately after the ceremony. Emily noticed genuine fear behind his eyes for the first time since they met. Ryan, she asked softly, does Marcus have the power to stop your merger? Ryan hesitated. Then he answered with complete honesty. He does not just have the power to stop it. He looked toward Marcus, who was quietly speaking with the chairman of the bank. Without his signature, there is no merger at all. Emily slowly lowered her bouquet as another memory surfaced, one she had dismissed months ago. On the day she signed the divorce papers, Marcus had looked at her with quiet compassion and said only one sentence before walking away. I hope one day you discover what real value looks like. At the time she believed he was speaking about love. Standing inside the silent cathedral, surrounded by the most influential people in the city waiting patiently for the man she had underestimated, Emily began to realize he had been talking about something far greater. Emily could no longer hear the music. The elegant melody faded beneath the sound of her own heartbeat as questions crashed against everything she believed she knew about the man standing only a few feet away. Marcus had always arrived home before sunset. He fixed leaking faucets himself. He drove an aging pickup truck with more than 200,000 miles on the odometer. He clipped grocery coupons and insisted that wasting food was disrespectful. None of those memories matched the quiet authority filling the cathedral now. A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. Mr. Ellington, the international delegation has landed safely. They will meet you after tomorrow's board session. Marcus smiled politely. Please make sure they have everything they need. No one should be left waiting because of me. The assistant nodded immediately before stepping away. Emily stared at Ryan. What is happening? She whispered. Ryan looked as though every carefully constructed plan inside his mind was collapsing one piece at a time. Marcus controls Ellington Capital, he answered quietly, barely able to meet her eyes. Every major investor in this room answers to that company. Emily frowned. Ellington Capital? The name struck her like a distant memory finally coming into focus. She had seen it on financial news broadcasts. She had heard Ryan mention it during late-night business calls. Every ambitious executive dreamed of earning its backing. Every acquisition required its approval. She slowly turned toward Marcus again. You are telling me. Ryan closed his eyes for a brief moment. He founded it. Emily felt the air leave her lungs. That is impossible. Ryan gave a hollow laugh, filled with disbelief. I used to think the same thing until I met him 2 years ago. Across the room, another executive approached Marcus carrying a tablet. Sir, the quarterly reports exceeded expectations again. The Education Foundation approved another 200 scholarships this morning. Marcus nodded. Good. Make sure every recipient receives the news before the weekend. Those students have waited long enough. Yes, sir. Emily listened in stunned silence. Scholarships, foundations, investments. None of this sounded like the life of a man obsessed with showing off wealth. In fact, Marcus seemed almost uncomfortable being the center of attention. He accepted every greeting with quiet humility before redirecting the conversation towards someone else's accomplishments. The same kindness she had once mistaken for a lack of ambition suddenly appeared very different. She remembered evenings when he stayed late answering phone calls from people she assumed were coworkers. He always stepped onto the apartment balcony before speaking. When she asked why, he simply smiled and said, "Some conversations deserve privacy." She remembered weekends when he disappeared for several hours claiming he was volunteering. She had rolled her eyes, telling friends that Marcus cared more about strangers than success. Now every forgotten detail returned with painful clarity. Marcus had never been avoiding success. He had simply never needed to advertise it. Ryan suddenly received another message. His expression tightened even further as he read it. "The board meeting has been moved forward," he muttered. "They want to finalize everything immediately after the ceremony." Emily noticed genuine fear behind his eyes for the first time since they met. "Ryan," she asked softly, "does Marcus have the power to stop your merger?" Ryan hesitated. Then he answered with complete honesty. "He does not just have the power to stop it." He looked toward Marcus, who was quietly speaking with the chairman of the bank. "Without his signature, there is no merger at all." Emily slowly lowered her bouquet as another memory surfaced, one she had dismissed months ago. On the day she signed the divorce papers, Marcus had looked at her with quiet compassion and said only one sentence before walking away. "I hope one day you discover what real value looks like." At the time she believed he was speaking about love. Standing inside the silent cathedral, surrounded by the most influential people in the city waiting patiently for the man she had underestimated, Emily began to realize he had been talking about something far greater. The silence inside the cathedral grew so complete that even the faint hum of the crystal chandeliers seemed unusually loud. Marcus gently closed the leather portfolio without signing a single page. Every executive waited patiently, watching only him. Ryan took one cautious step forward, his confidence completely gone. "Mr. Ellington," he said quietly, "if there is anything that concerns you about the merger, my team can make adjustments immediately." Marcus looked at him with the same calm expression he had worn all morning. "This has never been about adjustments, Ryan." His voice remained soft, yet every person in the room heard every word. "It has always been about trust." Ryan lowered his eyes. He understood exactly what Marcus meant. Months earlier, during private negotiations, Ryan had promised transparency, long-term partnerships, and responsible leadership. Yet over time those promises had slowly been replaced by aggressive expansion, risky acquisitions, and decisions designed to impress shareholders rather than protect employees. Marcus had noticed every change without saying a word. He believed character revealed itself over time, especially when success arrived too quickly. Emily stood frozen beside the altar, listening as pieces of a world she had never known quietly assembled themselves before her eyes. One of the senior board members finally broke the silence. "Mr. Ellington, after reviewing the latest financial reports and governance recommendations, the board unanimously agreed that the merger should proceed only if you personally remained as majority chairman." Several guests gasped softly. Ryan closed his eyes. The final truth had arrived. His company had never been acquiring a powerful partner. It had been hoping to earn the approval of the man who already controlled the future of the entire project. Marcus nodded respectfully toward the board member before looking back at Ryan. "Your company has talented people. Your employees deserve stability. Your customers deserve honesty. Those are the reasons I considered supporting this partnership." Ryan swallowed hard. "And now?" Marcus answered without anger. "Now I believe leadership must begin with integrity before it can create prosperity." The words landed gently, but their meaning reached every corner of the cathedral. Nobody argued. Nobody objected. They had all witnessed the same lesson unfolding in real time. Emily suddenly remembered countless evenings when Marcus had quietly returned home exhausted after meetings she assumed were ordinary office work. She had complained that he lacked ambition because he never spoke about promotions, luxury cars, or expensive vacations. She had mistaken humility for weakness. She had confused silence with failure. The realization hurt more than any public embarrassment ever could. A young attorney approached Marcus carrying another folder. "Sir, the revised ownership documents are ready." The board voted unanimously this morning. Marcus accepted the folder and opened it briefly before handing it back. Please continue with the employee protection provisions exactly as discussed. Every existing worker keeps their position, every retirement plan remains fully funded, and every scholarship program continues without interruption. The attorney smiled. Already included, sir. Ryan looked genuinely surprised. You still intend to protect everyone? Marcus met his eyes. Business decisions affect families, not just balance sheets. Ryan slowly nodded, understanding that Marcus had never been motivated by pride or revenge. His influence existed because people trusted him to choose what benefited others, even when he had every opportunity to choose only himself. Around the cathedral, executives exchanged quiet looks of admiration. Emily noticed something remarkable. No one respected Marcus because he was the wealthiest man in the city. They respected him because, despite having every reason to humiliate those who had underestimated him, he refused to become the kind of leader who measured people by status alone. Standing beneath the cathedral lights, Emily finally understood that the greatest fortune Marcus possessed had never been his companies, his investments, or his influence. It was the quiet strength of a man whose character had remained unchanged long. Before anyone knew the size of his success, Emily stood motionless beneath the warm cathedral lights, her bouquet resting loosely in her hands as the future she had spent months chasing quietly dissolved before her eyes. The room remained respectfully silent, giving no one permission to escape the truth that had unfolded. She slowly walked toward Marcus, each step feeling heavier than the last. The polished marble reflected the soft glow above them, and for a brief moment she remembered another floor years earlier, the worn hardwood in their first apartment where they had danced barefoot after moving in with nothing more than borrowed furniture and impossible dreams. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice trembling with regret rather than fear. He turned to face her with the same calm kindness that had never disappeared, not during their marriage, not during the divorce, and not even today. She searched his face, hoping to find anger because anger would have been easier to understand. Instead, she found quiet compassion. "I thought I knew what success looked like," she admitted softly. "I was wrong." Marcus remained silent, allowing her words to settle without interruption. Around them, the executives respectfully looked away, giving the moment a dignity no one wanted to disturb. Emily lowered her eyes. "I kept waiting for you to become someone greater, never realizing you already were." A faint smile touched Marcus's face, not one of victory, but of understanding. "People often confuse visibility with value," he replied gently. "The two are rarely the same." Emily felt tears roll down her cheeks. "Why did you never tell me? Why did you let me believe you were just ordinary?" Marcus glanced toward the tall stained glass windows where morning sunlight painted quiet colors across the cathedral floor. "Because if someone only stays after learning what I own, they never truly chose me." His answer settled into the silence like a truth that had existed long before either of them arrived there. Emily covered her mouth, remembering every conversation where she had measured dreams by income, neighborhoods by property values, and people by appearances. She had never once asked Marcus what fulfilled him. She had only asked what came next. Ryan slowly approached as well, his confidence replaced by sincere humility. "Mr. Ellington," he said, "I owe you an apology. I spent too much time trying to impress people instead of becoming someone worthy of their trust." Marcus offered him a respectful nod. "The fact that you can say that today means you still have an opportunity to become the leader your company deserves." Ryan accepted the words quietly, understanding they were not a guarantee of success, only an invitation to earn it honestly. Emily looked back at Marcus one final time. "Is there any chance we could begin again?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus took a slow breath before answering. "Forgiveness and returning are not always the same journey." He smiled gently, removing every trace of bitterness from the moment. "I forgave you a long time ago because carrying resentment only makes the heart heavier. But some chapters teach us precisely because they cannot be rewritten." Emily nodded through her tears. She understood. The opportunity she had lost was not his wealth. It was the quiet life they had built together before she allowed comparison to replace gratitude. Marcus extended his hand with simple kindness. She accepted it, and for a brief moment they shared the peaceful silence of two people no longer carrying anger toward one another. Then he released her hand, adjusted his jacket, and turned toward the waiting executives. Without celebration, without pride, and without looking back again, he calmly walked toward the cathedral doors, leaving behind not a lesson about money, but a reminder that the rarest kind of success is becoming someone whose character never changes, no matter how much the world eventually discovers about them. 1 year later, the skyline shimmered beneath the golden light of another autumn evening as Marcus stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ellington Capital's headquarters, watching the city move with its familiar rhythm. Cars flowed through the streets below, people hurried home to their families, and somewhere in the distance church bells marked another peaceful Friday. His office remained surprisingly simple. A walnut desk, shelves lined with books worn from years of reading, family photographs instead of awards. The framed picture from his first apartment still rested in the same place it always had, quietly reminding him that success meant very little if it erased the person who earned it. A soft knock interrupted the silence. His assistant stepped inside with a warm smile. "Your guests from the Scholarship Foundation have arrived, sir." Marcus nodded. "Please send them in." Moments later, a group of college students entered the office, each carrying acceptance letters for internships that would change their lives. They thanked him with excited voices, but Marcus gently redirected the attention toward their own hard work. "Opportunity opens doors," he told them. "Character decides what you build after walking through them." The students left smiling, carrying hope instead of promises. As the office grew quiet again, Marcus looked across the city and reflected on everything that had changed during the past year. Ryan had rebuilt his company with patience instead of pride. The merger eventually moved forward under stricter ethical standards, protecting employees and honoring every commitment Marcus had insisted upon. Investors who once chased quick profits now praised Ryan for becoming a steadier leader. The lesson had reached far beyond one wedding day. Emily had chosen a different path as well. She dedicated her time to nonprofit organizations that helped young women build careers without measuring their worth by someone else's lifestyle. They spoke only occasionally, always with mutual respect and genuine kindness. The pain of the past had quietly become gratitude for the wisdom it left behind. There was no bitterness between them anymore, only understanding. Marcus turned as another gentle knock came at the door. A young architect named Grace Bennett stepped inside carrying blueprints for a new community learning center the foundation planned to build. She smiled the same sincere smile she had worn since the day they first met while volunteering at a neighborhood education project. She had worked beside him for months before discovering who he really was. When someone finally mentioned his name during a board meeting, she had laughed and admitted she thought he simply enjoyed helping people because it made him happy. Marcus had smiled then, just as he smiled now. "Ready to look at the plans?" she asked. "Absolutely," he replied. They spread the drawings across the conference table, discussing classrooms, libraries, gardens, and spaces where children could dream beyond their circumstances. Their conversation never touched stock prices, luxury homes, or private jets. It centered entirely on people whose futures could still be changed. Outside, the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, bathing the city in quiet amber light. Marcus glanced once more toward the window before turning back to the blueprints waiting in front of him. The greatest victory of his life had never been becoming the wealthiest man in the city. It had been remaining the same man before and after the world finally discovered it. And as evening settled peacefully over the skyline, the silence itself seemed to whisper the truth that no amount of money could ever purchase. Real wealth is found in the people who recognize your value long before they ever learn your name.